Welcome everyone back to weekly weather updates, and in today's video we're going to have the latest from the live radar, run through the weather warnings as we have got yellow rain warnings issued for the rest of today into tomorrow morning for rain across southern England. As you can see on the live radar, we've got a channel low moving in that is giving some really heavy rain, especially towards that M4 corridor southwards, but even further north than that we're likely to see thick cloud and some outbreaks of rain, but a few tens of millimeters seen to the south of that M4 corridor, and likely again to see some disruption from flooding as we do have some very saturated ground in this area. So it is going to be pretty horrible over the next 24 hours, and we'll be able to have a look at that in detail on the latest UKV, as we are going to see really quite changeable conditions over the next 5 days. Some milder days, some colder days, some drier days, and some very wet days as well. There are signs as we head into the latter part of this week that we could see a bit of snow in places. Now, I haven't spoken about this in the past few days because we have been seeing some very changeable conditions within the models, but we are seeing the risk of some cold air getting wrapped in around a bit of a stalling low on Friday, and that could allow for some winteriness. Again, we're not expecting anything too major, but there could be falling snow even to low-lying areas when we factor in evaporative cooling. That is where the intensity of the precipitation can cool down the temperatures rapidly and overcome that freezing point, allowing snow to fall to surface levels. So we'll have to see exactly what happens later this week, but I'll show you the latest GFS, which does suggest easing some snow across England and Wales on Friday. Very marginal, but the possibility is there. Changeable conditions are likely to continue into early March as well, with some drier, cooler, wetter, and potentially even warmer days as well. Very much all over the place, and doesn't look like there'll be much consistency in the day-to-day weather. So do remember, if you enjoy my videos, do like and subscribe, and remember to follow me on Twitter as well, the link's in the description. If you start on the live radar, you can see it's a kind of a day of two halves, or a country of two halves, let's just say. For parts of England and Wales, it's horrible, wet and cold. Further north, it's still a little bit chilly, but quite a bit drier. And we're not seeing too many showers, a few across northern Scotland, but it's really this big area of heavy rain associated with the channel low that is moving through. You can see it spiraling around the centre of the low, which is just off the coast of Cornwall at the moment, and is going to move into parts of northern France over the coming hours, and it's going to kind of stall this precipitation across southern England. Now, if we had enough cold air in place, then this would be a perfect storm for significant snow. You'd expect, looking at this, we could see a foot of snow if we had cold air in place. However, as I said in yesterday's video, throughout this winter so far, whenever we have seen channel lows developing and we have had cold air in place, they have always drifted further southwards. Now, some may argue that is because the cold air is denser and it means the low pressure really struggles to push in, but equally we have seen those events in the past. Pretty typical, but one channel low that develops significant precipitation across southern England is the one time where we have no cold air in place. Instead, it's just chilly and really quite horrible out there throughout the rest of today. As you can see on the latest temperatures, during the middle of the afternoon, it's pretty cool widely, around average for the time of year. But even across southern England here, you can see some lighter and darker blues developing. That's temperatures in the mid-single digits, feeling much colder than that under the rain. Further northwards, perhaps chillier conditions in the actual temperatures because we are in cooler air, but it's going to be a better feeling rest of the day as we don't have too much rain around. Now, if you do look at the weather warnings, you can see we've got 2 rain warnings issued. This rain warning issued across southwest England, which does expire later this evening at midnight, as that rain will progress further eastwards into Monday morning. Again, we won't have a look at this in too much detail as we did look at it in detail yesterday, but you can see it has been increased in terms of its impact level to cater for the possibility of very heavy rain affecting parts of Devon and Cornwall from late morning until mid-afternoon. So that's what we saw on the live radar with some lighter bands, and the warning has also been extended across Exmoor and end time pushback. So actually an increase in severity of the warning for southwest England, and then the warning for southeast England has been updated and it expires at 9 a.m. tomorrow. Again, these regions we're looking at a few tens of millimeters, maybe 20 to 30 millimeters widely, maybe as much as 40 to 50 millimeters in the worst affected areas. Again, in total amounts, that's not exceptional. It really shouldn't cause too much in terms of flooding, or at least widespread flooding, but it's because the ground is so saturated that it is going to cause issues over the next 24 to 48 hours. Now, if you go over to the latest UK view, we'll be able to look at the precipitation and the temperature over the next 5 days. And you can see throughout the rest of today that channel low continues pushing through, giving very heavy rain, lasting all the way into the early hours of the morning across the southeast. Quite a lot of uncertainty exactly how quickly it clears that southeast corner, but at the moment it could linger to the late morning across the far southeast of Kent. Rest of tomorrow actually looks like a pretty decent day, but we've got a strong northeasterly wind coming off the back of that channel low, so it is going to stay chilly out there. But as we progress into Tuesday, you see the wind direction changes back to a westerly, as we do see milder air pushing in off the Atlantic, especially through Wednesday and Thursday. But as we head into Friday, if you watch the area of precipitation out to the northwest, it starts dropping southwards, and this is because we see this low suddenly drop towards the Channel and towards France, bring cold air with it and very unsettled conditions. You can already see here snow starting to fall over the higher ground. It could even fall to low-lying areas, as we'll see from the GFS in a minute. If you do look at the upper air temperatures, you see pretty cold air is wrapped in this. Again, it's not a bitterly cold spell. It's one of those marginal sort of type patterns. We have very cold air wrapped in within a low, really only possible at this time of year when we have sort of the coldest air to our north. Again, if this pattern happened in December, for example, these cold upper air temperatures wouldn't be here because it's too early in the winter for cold air coming from this direction wrapped within a low. But the possibility is there. We do see this quite regularly through February and March. We see these kind of marginal snow events. Never too major in terms of disruption because it doesn't normally settle all too much, especially to low-lying areas. But the possibility is there on Friday. Don't want to guarantee anything, but definitely the looks of some of the models definitely is some wintriness potentially falling out of the sky as we head into the latter parts of this week, into the first couple of days of March. You can see the dew points associated with it are dropping down towards freezing. Again, they're not far below freezing, so it is, again, going to be pretty marginal. If you look at the max temperatures, you can see through that the rest of the afternoon it's mid to high single digits, so generally average, maybe slightly below average for the time of year. As we head into Monday, again, a frost is possible further northwards, so we have clearer skies, but nowhere near as widespread as it was this morning. Monday afternoon, again, similar temperatures today, maybe slightly higher, 7 or 8 degrees. And then as we head into Tuesday, more of a widespread frost, so we have clearer skies again, and perhaps even a chillier day, 5 to 7 degrees. As we head into Wednesday, temperatures should start to climb up, maybe just touching double digits in a few spots. And then into Thursday, again, it could be milder further south and eastwards. But as we head into Friday, you could look to our north and west, temperatures already starting to chill. Again, we'll have to see what happens through Friday afternoon, but definitely started to cool down there into the first couple of days of March. Again, I must emphasise there's no major cold spell, but maybe a couple of days where those colder upper air temperatures coincide with precipitation, meaning the risk of wintriness. Now, if you look at the latest GFS, you can see this overall pattern quite well. The channel low developing and pushing through over the coming hours. Westerly winds continue, and then this low developing out to our northwest drops southwards all of a sudden into Friday, and it is positioned to our south, a brief Atlantic ridge, and it allows cold air from the north to get wrapped in within this low. And this means precipitation will fall with cold air around. It's not bitterly cold air, it's really only the -5 to maybe -7 isotherm, so it is pretty marginal, but cold enough for wintriness. That cold air kind of dissipates away though into Saturday, Sunday. It's only really a 48-hour cold little blast there, and then we stay with chilly conditions coming in from the west. But we have got a bit of a high pressure ridge up towards Scandinavia, which is slowing the progress of these lows, which may mean it turns even more horrible in terms of precipitation as those weather fronts really struggle to clear. And that could be a theme into the early parts of March, for eventually high pressure could try to build in. Now, if you look at the latest GFS, just to have a look at Friday, you can see wintriness starting to move in. By Friday morning, as we head into the afternoon, we see lots of areas of precipitation spiralling around this low, wintriness across parts of Scotland, Northern Ireland, even into parts of England and Wales there into the early hours of Saturday. Again, it looks incredibly marginal, very difficult to distinguish between rain, sleet and snow. But nonetheless, pinks appearing here as we head into the early parts of the weekend before eventually clearing as we head into Sunday and Monday. But still some pinks around even after that. So it's going to be one to watch. Don't want to overhype it at this stage, but I have seen it cropped up within the models in the last couple of days, and we are starting to get into the time frame where it could become a possibility. Now, if you look at the latest GM, very similar over the coming days. Westerly winds returning by Wednesday. The low drops to our south. We could see some windiness associated with that through Friday and Saturday. You can see some cool air developed within it. Nowhere near as much as the GFS, so perhaps the GM not as wintry, but nonetheless a similar pattern overall. And then again, generally oscillating between northerly and westerly winds, as we do see a bit of a mid-Atlantic ridge there. So could see some cold air wrapped in within that again with a brief northerly blast. But again, we're not expecting anything too major. Again, we are seeing a bit of a high pressure system develop towards Scandinavia and Siberia. We want to watch what happens with that. This stage, not expecting any major easterly winds or anything, but that could, as I said, halt the progression of Atlantic lows, keeping us under weather fronts, keeping us pretty rainy indeed if that did come off. Here, though, the high pressure is too far eastwards to really influence us too much, but the possibility is there. Now, if you compare to the ECMWF, again, westerly winds continuing into the middle of the week, then we see that low drop out of Greenland. This one has got quite a bit of cold air wrapped in within it. Again, maybe not as much as the GFS, but it stays pretty horrible. The ECMWF hit all the way until day 10, where eventually high pressure tries to build, and it builds up towards Scandinavia, and while it does, it actually starts to drag southerly winds in for a time. This could evolve into quite a warm and dry pattern, so it's similar to the other runs in terms of building pressure towards Scandinavia, but it's far enough westwards that it holds these lows, which the other runs have trapped over the top of us, a few hundred miles further westwards, keeping us under dry conditions and trying to drag up some milder air from the south. Very much got to keep an eye on that, because that could actually develop into a warmer dry spell into early March. Now, after you finally look at the latest ensembles, go up and down over the next week or so, you can see the latter part of this week we had a couple of degrees below average and quite a lot of precipitation, and that's why there's the possibility of some wintriness. As we progress beyond that, you can look, we're generally around average for the time of year with still quite a bit of precipitation, and that's why I said it's going to be very changeable, because we some dry days, colder days, milder days, so we're a little bit all over the place. 2 meter temperatures are quite up and down, but generally, as I said, on the upwards trend towards the double digits more consistently towards the middle of March, which is expected for the time of year. But you can see there are little deviations here or there, and the dew points fairly static around the low single digits. But you can see wherever it does dip towards 0, that's where we could see a bit of wintriness. And you can see from the GFS ensembles, some of them are producing snow through Friday and Saturday. But again, it is hints at this stage, possibility, no guarantees. If we do finish by looking at the latest ECMWF, very similar upwards trend generally as we head into the longer term, but that is expected as we head into March. A little bit of a downwards dip there into Friday, maybe not as much as GFS, but still dropping towards -4, maybe -3 from some runs. It gives the possibility of some wintriness coinciding with that precipitation, but generally hovering around average for the time of year. 2 meter temperatures are fairly similar. Slow upwards trend, but still generally around the average point for the time of year. So very changeable over the next week or two. Plenty of cooler, drier, wetter, and colder weather. And there is the possibility, for example, on Friday, of seeing a little bit of late winter wintriness. No crazy cold spell at all, but just the possibility of some falling snow potentially in places, a bit of evaporative cooling, giving some temporary wintriness. So we just have to see how it does develop. But at this stage, we could see a whole range of conditions over the next week or so. So you might need your hat and gloves once again for a couple of days, but hopefully we see something a little bit drier and maybe milder as we head into early spring. Remember, meteorological spring starts on Friday as we get to the 1st of March. So anyway, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you again for another video soon.